Hare Krishna, everyone. We hope you're still there. We had slight connection difficulties here, as we often do here in Wisteria College, because we're in the countryside next to a horse farm, and their whinnying sometimes interferes with the internet. What to speak of the storm that's been brewing outside and blowing its head off. So anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to continue with Srimad-Bhagavatam 10:60-38. This is part 2, and we're going to start where we left off, maybe even a little before, just so that you didn't miss anything. Rukmini is continuing to get on Krishna's case, which is what Krishna was trying to do to get a rise out of her, I guess you should say, by his, glorious speech, deprecating himself and asking her, maybe you can find another husband. This is after she already has grandkids. Of course, their spiritual bodies stay young forever, so there's no question of, old wrinkled bodies and things like that. So even though she's a grandmother, she's still as beautiful as a 16-year-old. Hey, you want to go there? There you go. Okay, we're going to take it up at text 44 again. And if we repeat a text or two, please don't mind. It's double your fun. Text 44. O infallible Krishna, this is Rukmini Krishna this is Rukmini talking to Krishna. O infallible Krishna, let each of the kings you named become the husband of a woman whose ears have never heard your glories, which are sung in the assemblies of Shiva and Brahma. After all, in the households of such women, these kings live like asses, oxen, dogs, cats, and slaves. Strong words coming from Krishna's better half. Purport. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, these fiery words of Queen Rukmini are a response to Lord Krishna's opening statement, found in text 10 of the chapter. The Supreme Lord had said, "My dear princess, you were sought after by many kings as powerful as the rulers of planets. They were all abundantly endowed with political influence, wealth, beauty, generosity, and physical strength." According to Sridhar Swami, Queen Rukmini here speaks with anger, pointing her index finger at the Lord. She compares the so-called great princes to asses because they carry many material burdens, to oxen because they are always distressed while performing their occupational duties, to dogs because their wives disrespect them, to cats because they are selfish and cruel, and to slaves because they are servile in family affairs. Such kings may appear desirable to a foolish woman who has not heard or understood the glories of Sri Krishna. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti adds that such kings are like asses because their wives sometimes kick them, like dogs because they behave inimically toward outsiders in order to protect their homes, and like cats because they eat the remnant left by their wives. Text 45. A woman who fails to relish the fragrance of the honey of your lotus feet becomes totally befooled, and thus she accepts as her husband or lover a living corpse covered with skin, whiskers, nails, head hair, and body hair, and filled with flesh, bones, blood, parasites, feces, mucus, bile, and air. Purport. Here Lord Krishna's chaste wife makes a quite unequivocal statement about material sense gratification based on the physical body. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments as follows on this verse. On the authority of the statement, Savai Pati Syad Akuto Baya Swayam, Bhagavatam 5:18-20. He indeed should become one's husband, who can remove all fear. Sri Krishna is the real husband for all women at all times. Thus, a woman who worships someone else as her husband simply worships a dead body. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments further. Rukmini thus considered that although the sweetness of Lord Krishna's lotus feet is well known, and although he possesses an eternal body full of knowledge and bliss, foolish women reject him. An ordinary husband's body is covered on the outside by skin and hair. Otherwise, being filled with blood, feces, flesh, bile, and so on, it would be overwhelmed with flies and other vermin attracted by its bad smell and other offensive qualities. Those who have no practical experience of the beauty and purity of Krishna or of Krishna consciousness may be confused by such uncompromising denunciations of material bodily gratification. But those who are enlightened in Krishna consciousness will be enlivened and enthused by such absolutely truthful statements. The truth will set you free. Text 46. O lotus-eyed one, though you are satisfied within yourself, and thus rarely turn your attention toward me, please bless me with steady love for your lotus feet. It is when you assume a predominance of passion in order to manifest the universe that you glance upon me, showing me what is indeed your greatest mercy. Purport. In text 20 of this chapter, Lord Krishna stated, always satisfied within ourselves, we care nothing for wives, children, and wealth. Here Rukmini Devi humbly replies, yes, you take pleasure within yourself, and therefore rarely look at me. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that Lord Krishna had already declared his love for Rukmini. Bhagavatam 10:53-2, Tataham apitachjito nidram na cha labe nishi. I am also thinking about her, so much so that I cannot sleep at night. Lord Krishna is satisfied within himself. And if we remember that Srimati Rukmini Devi is his internal potency, we can understand that his loving affairs with her are expressions of his pure spiritual happiness. Here, however, Queen Rukmini humbly identifies herself with the Lord's external energy, which is her expansion. Therefore she says, though you do not often look at me, when you are ready to manifest the material universe, and thus begin to work through the material quality of passion, which is your potency, you glance at me. In this way you show me your greatest mercy. Thus Acharya Vishwanath explains that Goddess Rukmini's statement can be understood in two ways. And of course, the Vaishnavas, after thoroughly understanding the philosophy of Krishna from a bona fide Acharya, simply relish these loving affairs between the Lord and his exalted devotees. Text 47, sorry. Actually, I don't consider your words false, Madhusudana. Quite often, an unmarried girl is attracted to a man, as in the case of Amba. Purport. Having refuted everything Lord Krishna said, Srimati Rukmini, in a gracious frame of mind, now praises the truthfulness of her statements. In other words, she accepts that Lord Krishna used her as an example to elucidate ordinary female psychology. The king of Kashi had 3 daughters, Amba, Ambalika, and Ambika. And Amba was attracted to Shalva. This story is narrated in the Mahabharata. Text 48. The mind of a promiscuous woman always hankers for new lovers, even if she is married. An intelligent man should not keep such an unchaste wife, for if he does, he will lose his good fortune both in this life and the next. Text 49. The Supreme Personality of God, the Supreme Lord said, O saintly lady, O princess, we deceived you only because we wanted to hear you speak like this. Indeed, everything you said in reply to my words is most certainly true. Text 50. Whatever benedictions you hope for in order to become free of material desires are ever yours, O fair and noble lady, for you are my unalloyed devotee. Text 51. O sinless one, I have now seen firsthand the pure love and chaste attachment you have for your husband. Even though shaken by my words, your mind could not be pulled away from me. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti quotes the following verse describing the pure love between Rukmini and Krishna. Sarvata dvangsa rahitam satyapi dvangsa karane yad bhava bandhanam yuno saprema parikirtitaha. When the affectionate bond between a young man and a young woman can never be destroyed, even when there is ever cause for the destruction of that relationship, the attachment between them is said to be pure love. This is the nature of the eternal loving affairs between Lord Krishna and his pure conjugal associates. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are 2, well, there's more than 2, but 2 particular definitions of love, pure love. One is that it is for the gratification of the beloved, not oneself. And the other is that if there is cause, just cause, to leave, and the person doesn't leave, it's pure love. 52. Although I have the power to award spiritual liberation, lusty persons worship me with penance and vows in order to get blessings for their mundane family life. Such persons are bewildered by my illusory energy. Purport. The word dampatye indicates the relationship between husband and wife. Lusty and bewildered persons worship the Supreme Lord to enhance this relationship, though they know he can free them from their useless attachment to temporary things. Text 53. O Supreme Reservoir of Love, unfortunate are they who, even after obtaining me, the Lord of all, both liberation and material riches, hanker only for material treasures. These worldly gains can be found even in hell. Since such persons are obsessed with sense gratification, hell is a fitting place for them. Purport. It stands to reason that since Lord Krishna is the source of all pleasure and all opulence, he himself is the supreme pleasure and the most opulent. Therefore, our real self-interest is to is to always engage in the loving service of Lord Krishna. As Prahlad Maharaj says, Bhagavatam 7.5.31, Na te vidu svartagatim hi Vishnum. The ignorant do not know that their actual self-interest lies in attaining the Supreme Lord Vishnu, Krishna. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, one can easily obtain female association and other sense pleasures even in hell. We have practical experience that even such creatures as hogs, dogs, and pigeons have ample opportunity to enjoy sex. It is unfortunate that modern human beings who have a golden opportunity to become Krishna conscious prefer to enjoy like cats and dogs. And this goes on in the name of material progress. Text 54. Fortunately, O mistress of the house, you have always rendered me faithful, devotional service, which liberates one from material existence. This service is very difficult for the envious to perform, especially for a woman whose intentions are wicked, who lives only to gratify her bodily demands, and who indulges in duplicity. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami poses the following question. Since devotional service easily awards one liberation, isn't it possible that everyone will be liberated and the world will no longer exist? The great Acharya answers that there is no such danger, since it is very difficult for envious, duplicitous, sensuous persons to faithfully serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there is no shortage of such people in the world. Text 55. In all my palaces, I can find no other wife as loving as you, O most respectful one. When you were to be married, you disregarded all the kings who had assembled to seek your hand, and simply because you had heard authentic accounts concerning me, you sent a Brahmana to me with your confidential message. Text 56. When your brother, who had been defeated in battle and then disfigured, was later killed during a gambling match on Aniruddha's wedding day, you felt unbearable grief. Yet out of fear of losing me, you spoke not a word. By this silence, you have conquered me. Purport. Here Lord Krishna refers to an event that will be described in the next chapter. Thus, Krishna's talks with Rukmini must have taken place after the marriage of Aniruddha. Text 57. When you sent the messenger with your most confidential plan, and yet I delayed going to you, you began to see the whole world as void and wanted to quit your body, which could never have been given to anyone but me. May this greatness of yours remain with you always. I can do nothing to reciprocate except joyfully thank you for your devotion. Purport. Srimati Rukmini Devi had no intention whatsoever of accepting any other husband but Lord Krishna. As she stated in her message to the Lord, Bhagavatam 10:52-43, Aryam bhujakshana labhyena bhavat prasadam jayam asum vratakrisham shajadanmabhi syat. If I cannot obtain your mercy, I shall simply give up my vital force, which will have become weak from the severe penances I will perform. Then, after hundreds of lifetimes of endeavor, I may obtain your mercy. The Srimad-Bhagavatam firmly establishes the unique glories of Queen Rukmini Devi. Text 58. Shukadeva Goswami said, and so the self-satisfied Supreme Lord of the universe, enjoyed with the Goddess of Fortune, engaging in her lover's talks, and thus imitating the ways of human society. Purport. The word vidambayan means imitating and also ridiculing. The Lord acted like a husband of this world, but his pastimes are transcendental and expose the perverted nature of mundane activities aimed at bodily sense gratification. Text 59. The Almighty Lord Hari, preceptor of all the worlds, similarly behaved like a conventional householder in the palaces of his other queens, performing the religious duties of a family man. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 16th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Krishna Teases Queen Rukmini. Jai Shri Rukmini Devi Ki Jai, Shri Krishna Ki Jai. All glories to conjugal love. Haribol. So, we started late today. How late did we start? We started at 6:15. That's 45 minutes. That's good enough. So we're going to now open up our program to the open mic session. Please, anything that stuck out in your minds, that's a very intense chapter, intense loving exchanges between Krishna and Rukmini, his favorite queen. And let's talk about it. Hare Krishna.
There's one thing from online.
Say that again?
There's just one small question online.
Go ahead. But that's just this last part. What about the first part? Right, I'm checking.
Okay. This one is from Jasmine. She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
This is from Hey Bhakti Jasmine. Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Why does Krishna refer to himself as we in this chapter? Your servant Bhakti Jasmine.
It's called the royal we. Have you heard of the royal we? Because a king, when he speaks, he's speaking about not just for himself, but for all the persons that surround him, his entourage, and his, royalty. It's called the royal we. In this case, it's because he's actually accompanied by everyone. Next. It's intense. Yes, Radha Hari.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Radhari Devi Dasi.
I wondered if you would explain a little more about the definitions of pure love. You mentioned there were two.
Yes, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's two verses. I don't remember the Bengali, sorry. But one of them means that, one of them is love as opposed to lust, in opposition to lust, where it's described that love means when one is having an exchange only for the purpose of pleasing the other person. And lust means where I'm having an exchange for my own personal sense gratification. That's one definition. And the other definition was that if the other party in a loving affair does something that warrants leaving the person, but the person doesn't leave, that is a symptom of pure love. Now this is not to be misinterpreted to mean that if a person's in an abusive relationship, then they should just smile and bear it. And then this means that in loving affairs, if there's loving exchanges, if a person does something outrageous, then and the person doesn't leave, then that's a symptom of that the love is real. Otherwise, somebody does something you don't like and then you leave, that's not very nice. Doesn't mean that you love the person very much. Sometimes the term is used, fair-weathered friend. When things go good, then they're your friend, and things go south, then they go north, or whatever. Hare Krishna. What do you think?
I think there was interesting banter going on between the two of them.
Yeah, very interesting. The thing is, because of the way it ended up, of course, Prabhupada said that in male and female psychology, when they're actually couples and they get mad at each other, it shouldn't be taken so seriously. Because those things happen. You can't avoid those things. So this is one example of Krishna when he's acting like a perfect husband, or a human being, rather. Then he shows exactly how to, say things and then make up and do all the things that, couples do in order to make their lives more interesting and more enjoyable. Variety is the spice of life and all of that.
She seemed like a sharp lady. I think he was brave taking her on.
Oh yeah. He knew that that's what he wanted. He wanted to hear those things from her and hear her cleverness and her, yeah. Yes, Radharman, please. Wait for the mic. There it is.
Just going back to the previous point about the definitions of pure love, and the one about how one doesn't leave even if there's cause to leave. I'm just wondering, how does that apply in a sort of a more ISKCON type context, where perhaps, say, a devotee isn't fitting in a particular temple or community and because of some lack of compatibility or something, but at the same time there's this idea that Prabhupada said, and he definitely did say, and it's a very central thing that he said, that the proof of your love for me is how you cooperate together. I don't know if I'm exactly making it clear, but I'm hoping that you'll see where I'm going with this, and where does the cut-off point come in terms of, say, if it is correct for somebody to perhaps move to another community as opposed to
politics. I'm not going to get into politics and give some answer that may, just cause someone to become justified to leave because there's something they don't agree with in the management or something like that. I'm not going to get into that at all. I can say that there have been examples. I'll give you one example. In the New York Temple, many years ago, early on, this was in the early 70s, there was a devotee who became bewildered by a lady who claimed to be something she was not. She claimed to be an heiress of some great wealthy person or something. And I think that the person kind of thought that this was an opportunity to get a lot of wealth for the temple, whatever it was, but it wasn't real. And she turned out to be kind of like a pill, kind of like a spoiled person. And she was ordering different things for the temple, and then she got far out and she started eating chicken. And she was, by that time, she was kind of like considered to be the first lady of the temple. And she was asking the pujaris to offer the chicken to the deities in the temple. So there were some whistleblowers. You heard of whistleblowers in America? There's some whistleblowers that are getting some results nowadays. And they kind of blew the whistle. And there were others who just kept on doing their service. So Prabhupada wrote letters, and then it came out. It actually came out. The whole thing was exposed, and she was, sent on her way, and everything got back to normal. And then Prabhupada wrote these letters, very far out letters, to one of the letter. He wrote letters to the group of devotees who just did their service, commending them, because if they hadn't, then there may not be anything for them to correct. And on the other hand, the ones who blew the whistles, he commended, because it was a cause for purification of the situation and elevating the situation. So your question is a loaded question. It's a loaded question. It will be different for each circumstance, each person, each place. There will be places where there's justification to go somewhere else. There will be justification where it's better to stay, mm-hmm. and learn to, tolerate. But in general, we shouldn't go away from a situation in devotional service just because, it makes us feel uncomfortable or makes us feel, a certain way. I'll give you another example. There was a leader who was a sannyasi, and he was very, very powerful. In the place where he joined, he had a following himself. He was like a guru to many people. And when he came and surrendered to Prabhupada, they all came and joined also. We had a mass shave-up session. It was all the thing. It was the rage it was the flavor of the month or the flavor of the year for that year, the 70s. And because of his charisma, and he had a little different mood, right? And his authorities took exception to certain things, the way he did things that seemed to be a little different than the ISKCON standard. So there was a morning walk in which Prabhupada was there, and a couple of these authorities were there, and this devotee was there, this sannyasi. And so they were on the walk, and all of a sudden one of the persons who happened to be an authority, he said, "Srila Prabhupada, the followers of this person have more faith in him than they do you." And Prabhupada immediately said, "Well, that's all right. Faith is a question of the heart. You can't, stop somebody from having faith in another person. And if the person's following me and is, like that, then it's the same." So then there was quiet, because they were trying to get him. And then the next one said, well, Prabhupada, he doesn't distribute your books. And then the person who he's talking about, then you could hear him pipe up, Prabhupada, that's not true. I distribute your books. I just don't distribute them at the same price. Prabhupada said, well, that's all right. I mean, do you get the books from the BBT? Yes. So I don't lose anything. As long as you get from the books to the BBT and pay the price to the BBT, you can sell it for whatever you like. Silence. So they were trying to get him. In this way, they were trying to get him. And then after the walk went on a little bit more, and finally Prabhupada turned to this sannyasi and said, so what is it that, and he said, Prabhupada, I just can't work with these people. And then Prabhupada told a story. He told the story of the Congress Party in India, when it was first started by Gandhi, just before the independence of India. And they were trying to, no offense, I'm in England now, no offense, they were trying to get rid of the Brits, right? And so there was a party committee that was running the Congress, and they made a policy decision that all of the professionals that had joined, they should give up their professions. This was their idea of how to disrupt the society as what do they call, nonviolent opposition, nonviolent, what do they call it? Huh?
Protest?
Yeah, something like that. So then this person was a lawyer, and he was very, very wealthy. He was famous. He was getting lots. So he went to the committee and he said, wouldn't it be better if I just continued being a lawyer and then give you all the money, and that way you can use it to spread the party, to strengthen the party? And they talked about it, and they came to the conclusion, no, it's a principle. Because if this will disrupt the British, organization. So then what happened was either the guy, the lawyer, either his profession went south, it failed, and he had health problems, and his whole life got turned upside down. And then Prabhupada said, so the moral of the story is that when you have a group, and you're a member of the group, and the majority comes to a conclusion, then you should go along with it. Mm. And there was silence. And then, not long after that devotee left.
So it seems it's a slightly awkward thing, because I didn't mean it to be a loaded question, but I can see in the answer it's difficult to answer without it seeming that way. But it seems that if, I suppose, Guru, Shastra, Sadhu are saying one thing, then it's a clear message. So like with the example you just gave, if a majority of devotees are saying a certain thing, like for example the GBC, if the GBC have made it clear.
Yeah, if you want to be in an organization, and if you actually want to be a member of the organization, or if you want to be the citizen of a country, right? If you want, like in America, they drive their cars on the right, and here they drive their cars on the left. And if one of us come over here and start to drive on the right, and we get hauled in, and we say, well, I didn't know any better. I mean, if you get into a car and drive in this country, you have to know better before you do that. Otherwise, and they're not going to say, "Oh, never mind." No, they fine you, or they punish you in one way or another.
Mm. So if one does do the right thing under those circumstances, then in terms of the original point that Radha Hari was talking about, that one's definitely on the path to developing pure love.
Yes, correct. it's if you're working underneath someone, then it's your duty to find out. And if you're actually are sincere, and you accept the validity of the persons and the organization, etc., etc., and if you can see that the goal is exalted and good for you and for everyone else, then you have to follow the rules. That's the nature of the material world. It was constructed like that by Krishna. Laws of nature. You can't. Every organization has to have a leader. In the family, there are leaders, mother and father. Corporations, political parties. There's leaders, and to organize something and have something go in the same direction. Prabhupada used to say that otherwise we can't manage. If everyone had their own idea and were always going against the rules, then you can't really manage. You can't organize. So if the value system and the goals are good and beneficial for human society, then we should follow. If they're not, then like in New York, you blow the whistle, and then things will be adjusted. But there's a way to do that, and that's why Prabhupada commended the persons who stayed and did their service, even though there was something wrong, and the persons who were the whistleblowers. He commended both of them. Hare Krishna. Just like in a family, brothers and sisters, sometimes they just don't get along, What can you do? And it's not that you stop being a person's brother or sister just because you don't get along. You stay because it's a family. Principle applies everywhere. And when there is loyalty and fidelity and good intentions, and the goal is good especially, then, those who cooperate, they take whatever it is, the organization or the country, whatever it is, in a better direction. And that, as you said, I was there at the end when Srila Prabhupada said the test of your love for me is how you cooperate together to keep the institution together. Because the institution was necessary to spread Krishna consciousness in a big way, in a meaningful way, all around the world. And since ISKCON is the only organization within this Gaudiya lineage to do it, I would say that Prabhupada was correct.
Yeah, look what happened to the Gaudiya Math in wasn't it in like a matter of days?
Yes.
The whole thing just fell apart because
Yes.
everybody wanted to do their own thing.
Yes, because he gave them an order, gave them an instruction, that you establish a governing body and manage the society collegially. And there were two prominent leaders, and each one of them wanted to be the next Acharya, and they fought. And as soon as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left, it broke up. And it stopped, the preaching stopped, basically. And it went in court, and in order to pay for the court bills, they had to sell the printing presses and all the different things that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had, accumulated in order to help preach. They were all sold in order to pay the legal expenses. And then it just broke up into little, individual mutts, individual temples. And the thrust of the, unity was broken. Prabhupada therefore often preached, and especially to the GBC, our governing body commission, he preached that you get together once a year and you discuss unity in diversity. Don't lose the diversity and don't lose the unity. They both, and in Krishna consciousness and in Krishna himself, all contradictory ideas and contradictory things are reconciled. And that was one of the things that Rukmini was talking about in order to combat his self-deprecation and his attempt to get her to reject him. That all things are reconciled within Krishna, because he is the source of everything. So all the diversity is meant for his pleasure, and so if those diverse personalities and elements are actually acting for his pleasure, then we will do what he wants. We will do things in a way that pleases him. That's what love is. That's why usually husband and wives or couples in the relationship, when there's some difference of opinion, the instruction in the Vedas is not to take it seriously. And if you do take it too seriously, then there'll be, like today, 70% divorce rate, something like that. And then that trickles down or just spreads everywhere in human society, and there's a lack of trust, lack of cooperation, and the atmosphere becomes less than ideal, less than peaceful, for sure. Alex has something. He's typed it out. This is from Bhakta Alex.
He's asking, why was time said to emanate from Krishna's eyebrows?
Well, the universal form, in the analysis of the universal form, the different manifestations of the universal form, in other words, the cosmic manifestation, are likened to different parts of Krishna's body. Like the clouds are like the hair on his head, and the plants and trees and vegetation are like the hairs on his body. And the blinking of his eyes are like days and nights. And the sun is like the eyes, and like that, different parts of his body represent. So the eyebrows are what was it? Time. Yes, because the eyebrows, this is the universal conception in the Vedas, that time is represented by the eyebrows, the movements of the eyebrows. And then time tends to change everything and move everything, and that emanates from his eyebrows. So these are conceptions that help us to meditate on something we can see and relate it to Krishna's form. To help us impersonalists, that's everybody in the Western world, by the way, to help us appreciate and accept that the source of everything, that God must have a form. To get our minds accustomed to thinking in terms of how things relate to a personal form. Is that clear? You don't look on your face. You don't look like it's clear. It's not a mechanistic, one-to-one relationship. It's a poetic. These are poetic explanations, poetic descriptions of the material form to help us connect it with Krishna's personality. And literally, it's like that. When you hear about the creation of the universe, and how it's done, and from what parts of the body different energies emanate, then you can see that it actually makes sense. But that requires that you learn learn the descriptions of the universal form and how it relates.
In a lot of those ancient Indian stories, they tend to talk in a very poetic, beautiful, descriptive way anyway.
Yes, they all do. Because there is no way to describe the beauty of the Krishna's form or the spiritual world. Even the colors, the colors are here. The colors they look attractive to us, but the colors in the spiritual world are so much more vivid and so much more beautiful that you have to compare them to the beauty of the sun coming through the cloud in the sunset or sunrise and things like that. The lightning behind the cloud, making the cloud brilliant, and these kinds of poetic descriptions are the only way you can describe the beauty of the spiritual world. It's like the shadow. You see the shadow of the hand. It looks like the hand, and sometimes they have these famous funny games that they put a light out and they make the hands look like silhouettes, look like rabbits, or put them together and make them look like all kinds of funny creatures. But they can't duplicate the actual thing. Or a guy that learns how to bark like a dog perfectly. It sounds just like a dog. Then he'll put up a tent, and charge people, like a couple of quid to come in and listen to him bark like a dog, like what's your credit? Like there's lots of dogs barking like that, but the people do that. They want to see that kind of thing. Imitations. Material world is just an imitation of the spiritual world. Just like a mirage, like a dream. Okay, we're going to stop tonight. Thank you very much. Let us all worship and glorify Rukmini Devi for her intelligence. She gave it to Krishna. And for Krishna for, speaking such a way that he could get it out of her. That kind of wonderful, loving exchange. At the end, what happens when it's like that? When there's disagreement and there's that kind of talk, then the love for each person grows. And that's the difference. No malice, Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for coming again to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. We invite you all to come back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock here in Wisteria College. And join us as we continue to take that journey through the pastimes of Krishna, in which we learn so much about so many things. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. See you tomorrow night. Hare Krishna.